Nobody paid attention to the humans sitting in the corner of the cantina. That was exactly how Danny Reeves liked it. He had worked 12 hours straight moving cargo containers that weighed more than most aliens could lift. His shoulders ached. His back was sore. All he wanted was a hot meal and a cold drink before returning to his small quarters on Waypoint 16. The orbital station was busy tonight. Traders from a dozen worlds filled the cantina, their voices mixing into a comfortable noise. Danny recognized most of the species around him. The small, feathered Cassani, the four-armed Celians, the insected Pelori clicking quietly in their corner. Myra, a Cassani with bright blue feathers, brought him his food. She was barely 3 feet tall and had been his friend since he arrived on the station 2 years ago. "Long day?" she asked. "Always," Danny said with a tired smile. "Thanks, Myra." She patted his arm with her small wing and returned to the bar. Danny was halfway through his meal when the doors slid open and the noise in the cantina dropped. He looked up and saw why. 4 Torvan warriors walked in like they owned the place. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, with scaled skin and long claws. Their leader was the biggest of them all, his chest covered in ceremonial scars. Danny had seen Torvan before. They came from a low-gravity moon and considered themselves the finest warriors in their sector. They won tournaments. They collected trophies. They never let anyone forget it. The leader scanned the room with yellow eyes. Smaller species moved out of his path as he walked to the bar. "Drinks," he demanded. "Your best, we are celebrating." Myra hurried to serve them, her feathers flat with nervousness. "Another victory," one of the Torvan announced loudly. "Grath defeated the champion of the Hollow Worlds, broke his spine in 2 moves." The leader, Grath, accepted the praise with a sharp-toothed grin. He drank deeply and looked around the cantina for someone to impress. His eyes found Danny. Danny felt the stare but did not look up. He continued eating, hoping the Torvan would find someone else to bother. No such luck. Heavy footsteps approached. A shadow fell over Danny's table. "You," Grath said. "What are you?" Danny chewed slowly and swallowed. "Human." Grath's eyes widened slightly. "Human, I have heard of your kind, soft creatures from a heavy world you hide behind. Your machines and your ships." He leaned closer. "I have always wanted to see one up close." "Now you have," Danny said. "Enjoy your drink." Grath did not move. His crew gathered behind him, sensing entertainment. "They say humans are strong," Grath continued. "They say your world is dangerous, but I see nothing special, just a tired little thing eating alone." Danny said nothing. He reached for his drink. Grath's claw came down and knocked the glass across the table. Liquid spilled everywhere. The cantina went silent. "I am speaking to you, ground crawler," Grath growled. "When a Torvan champion speaks, you listen." Danny looked at the spilled drink. He looked at the food that was now ruined. Then he looked up at Grath. "That was my dinner," he said quietly. "And what will you do about it?" Grath laughed. His crew joined in. "Will you cry? Will you run? That is what soft species do." Myra watched from behind the bar, her eyes wide with fear. Grath grabbed Danny's shoulder and squeezed hard. His claws dug in, applying pressure that should have made any creature scream. Danny did not react. He simply looked at the claw on his shoulder like it was a mild inconvenience. Grath frowned. He squeezed harder. His claws should have been drawing blood by now. They should have been scraping bone. "Nothing." Danny reached up and took hold of Grath's wrist. With a simple twist, he removed the claw from his shoulder. The movement was casual, almost gentle, but Grath could not resist it. The Torvan's eyes went wide. "How?" he whispered. Danny released him and stood up slowly. He was shorter than Grath by more than a foot, but something in the way he moved made the Torvan step back. "I just want to eat my dinner in peace," Danny said. "Is that too much to ask?" Grath's face twisted with anger. He had been embarrassed in front of his crew, in front of the entire cantina. This could not stand. "I challenge you," he snarled. Formal combat tomorrow in the arena. The words echoed through the silent room. Station security pushed through the crowd. A Celian officer looked between them with concern. "The challenge has been issued," the officer said carefully. "Under station law, it is binding once accepted." Danny sighed. He looked at Myra, who was shaking her head desperately. He looked at the other patrons, who watched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He looked at Grath, who stood with his claws flexed and his teeth bared. "Fine," Danny said. "Tomorrow." He turned and walked out of the cantina without another word. Behind him, Grath laughed loudly. "Did you see? The human accepted. Tomorrow I will break every bone in his soft little body." His crew cheered, but a few of the older patrons exchanged looks. A Pelori merchant quietly placed a bet on the human, and Myra stood frozen behind the bar, wondering if her friend would survive the morning. None of them knew what a human could really do. They would learn soon enough. Grath could not stop talking about the fight. He stood at the center of the cantina, surrounded by his crew and a growing crowd of curious aliens. His voice carried across the room as he described how he would destroy the human. "I will start with his arms," Grath announced, flexing his claws. "Break them at the joints, then his legs. I want him crawling before I finish him." His crew cheered. Other species watched with nervous excitement. Combat duels were legal on Waypoint 16, but they were rare. Most creatures preferred to settle disputes with words or credits. Not the Torvund. Seth, the youngest of Grath's crew, stood at the edge of the group. He was smaller than the others, not yet fully grown, and he had been watching the human carefully. "Grath," he said quietly, "I have seen that human work. He carries cargo that should need machines. He does not seem weak." Grath turned to him with a cold smile. "Are you afraid, Seth? Do you think a soft ground crawler can defeat a Torvund champion?" "No, I just think we should be careful. The database says humans are from a Class 12 Deathworld." The other Torvund laughed. "Class 12, one of them mocked. "Propaganda. Every species exaggerates their homeworld." Grath walked over to Seth and placed a heavy claw on his shoulder. "Listen to me, young one. I have fought creatures from 100 worlds. I have broken bones of species that were supposed to be unbreakable. This human is nothing. Tomorrow you will see." Seth said nothing more, but doubt remained in his eyes. Across the station, Danny walked through the maintenance corridors. These tunnels connected the cargo bays to the residential sections, and few species used them. Danny liked the quiet. He reached his quarters, a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out at the stars. It was not much, but it was his. He sat on the bed and looked at his hands. They were rough from years of hard work. Scars crossed his knuckles from old fights, old accidents. He had not wanted this. A knock came at his door. Myra stood outside, holding a container of food. "You did not eat," she said. "I brought you something." Danny smiled and let her in. She placed the food on his desk and then turned to him with her feathers puffed in worry. "You cannot fight him," she said. "The Torvund are dangerous. They kill for sport. Grath has won 43 duels, 43, Danny." "I know." "Then why did you accept? You could have refused." Danny sat back down on his bed. "If I refused, I would be marked as a coward. Every bully on this station would come for me. My life here would be over." Myra's small body trembled. "I do not want you to die." "I am not going to die, Myra." She looked at him with wide eyes. "How can you be so calm? He is twice your size. He has claws that can cut through metal." Danny was quiet for a moment. How could he explain? How could he tell her about Earth? About a world where everything wanted to kill you? About millions of years of evolution that turned humans into the most efficient hunters the planet had ever seen? "Where I come from," he said slowly, "we had creatures much scarier than Grath. We hunted them. We survived them. We outlasted them all. But the Torvund are warriors. So are we just do not brag about it." Myra did not understand, but she saw something in his eyes that made her feel slightly better. a hardness, a certainty. She stayed with him for an hour talking about small things, the station gossip, the new traders who had arrived, anything to avoid thinking about tomorrow. When she finally left, Danny stood at his window and looked out at the stars. He thought about home, about the wide brown plains of Queensland, about the heat and the dust and the dangerous animals that hid in every shadow. He thought about his father teaching him to box, about his time in the army, about the day he decided to leave Earth and find work among the stars. He had not fought anyone seriously in years. He had hoped he never would again. But some things could not be avoided. He stretched his shoulders, feeling the familiar tension in his muscles. He was not as young as he used to be, but his body remembered. Years of training did not simply disappear. Tomorrow, Grath would learn what it meant to challenge a human. In the medical bay, a Celian doctor was reviewing files when she noticed something unusual. A request had come in to prepare a trauma team for the arena duel. She pulled up the data on both fighters. Grath Torvon, height 2.4 meters, weight 180 kilograms, combat rating expert, homeworld gravity 0.31 Earth standard. Danny Reeves, human, height 1.8 meters, weight 85 kilograms, combat rating unknown, homeworld gravity 1 Earth standard. The doctor paused. She ran the numbers again. A species evolved in triple the gravity of the Torvon homeworld, with proportional bone density and muscle development. She quietly ordered additional medical supplies. The trauma team would probably be needed. Just not for the human. The arena on Waypoint 16 was built for exactly this kind of event. It was a circular pit surrounded by rising seats that could hold 500 spectators. Energy barriers lined the edges, keeping the fighters contained and the audience safe. Bright lights hung overhead, leaving no shadows. By morning, every seat was filled. Word had spread fast. A Torvon champion against a human. Nobody wanted to miss it. Species of all kinds packed the stands. Traders paused their business. Workers abandoned their shifts. Even station security came to watch, though they stood ready at the barriers just in case. Myra sat in the front row, her feathers pressed flat against her body. She had not slept all night. Beside her, a Pelori merchant named Tiki clicked her mandibles excitedly. "I have 50 credits on the human." Myra looked at her in shock. "Why would you bet on Danny?" "Because I watched him lift a cargo container that weighed 3,000 kilograms last month, by himself, without machines." Tiki's compound eyes glittered. "The Torvon have no idea what they are dealing with." Before Myra could respond, the arena doors opened. Grath entered first. The Torvon champion walked in with his arms raised, soaking in the cheers from his crew. His scales gleamed under the lights. His claws were freshly sharpened. He wore the ceremonial markings of his people, painted across his chest in red. He looked like a warrior from legend. The crowd roared. Then the second door opened. Danny walked in wearing work clothes. Simple pants, a worn shirt, no markings, no ceremony. He looked like he was arriving for another day of moving cargo. The crowd went quiet, confused. Grath laughed. "This is who challenges me, this tired little creature." Danny said nothing. He walked to his side of the arena and waited. A station official stepped forward and announced the rules. Combat would continue until one fighter yielded or could not continue. No weapons, no outside help. Medical teams stood ready at the barriers. "Fighters ready." Grath flexed his claws. "I was born ready." Danny simply nodded. "Begin." Grath did not rush in immediately. He circled Danny slowly, showing off for the crowd. His movements were fluid, practiced. He had done this dozens of times before. "I will give you one chance," Grath said. "Yield now and I will only break one of your arms, a small lesson in respect." Danny watched him without expression. "No." "Your choice." Grath lunged. His claws slashed through the air in a wide arc, aimed at Danny's chest. It was a fast attack meant to intimidate and wound. Danny stepped to the side. The claws missed by inches. Grath spun and slashed again. Danny ducked. Another slash. Danny leaned back. The Torvon was fast, but Danny moved like he knew exactly where each attack would land. Because he did. Humans had spent millions of years hunting prey that could outrun them, outfight them, outkill them. They survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by reading their opponents, by predicting, by waiting for the perfect moment. Grath swung again. Danny stepped inside the arc of his arm and drove his fist into Grath's ribs. The sound was like a branch snapping. Grath gasped and stumbled backward. His eyes went wide with shock. He looked down at his side where two of his ribs had just shattered. The arena fell silent. "What?" Grath wheezed. "What did you?" Danny stood calmly. His fist had moved so fast that most of the audience had not even seen the strike, just the result. "Your bones are hollow," Danny said quietly. "Your muscles developed in low gravity. You evolved on a world that was gentle." He stepped forward. "I did not." Grath roared and charged. It was a desperate attack, driven by pain and rage. He threw his entire body at Danny, claws extended, teeth bared. Danny pivoted. His elbow came down on Grath's forearm as the Torvon passed. The bone snapped cleanly. Grath screamed and crashed to the ground, rolling across the arena floor. He tried to rise, using his one good arm to push himself up. Danny walked over and grabbed that arm. One twist and the shoulder popped out of its socket. Grath collapsed, whimpering. The entire fight had taken 40 seconds. Danny stepped back and looked down at the broken Torvon. Grath lay in a heap, his breathing ragged, his body shaking with pain. "Do you yield?" Danny asked. Grath could barely speak. His voice came out as a croak. "I yield." Danny nodded and turned away. The arena was completely silent. 500 spectators sat frozen, unable to process what they had just seen. The mighty Torvon champion, winner of 43 duels, had been destroyed by a human who was not even breathing hard. Medical teams rushed in. Myra stood at the barrier with tears streaming down her feathers. Tiki collected her winnings with shaking hands. And Danny Reeves walked out of the arena without looking back, already thinking about when he could finally get some breakfast. News of the fight spread across Waypoint 16 within hours. By midday, everyone on the station had heard some version of the story. A human had fought a Torvon champion. A human had won. A human had broken bones with simple punches and walked away without a scratch. Some did not believe it at first. The Torvon were feared warriors. How could a small, soft-looking human defeat one so easily? Then they saw the medical reports. 3 broken bones, 1 dislocated joint, internal bruising, fight duration approximately 40 seconds. The station database was flooded with searches about humans and their homeworld. What they found was disturbing. Earth, 3rd planet from a yellow star in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy, classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. The classification system went from Class 1 to Class 15. Most sapient species came from worlds rated between Class 3 and Class 6. Comfortable worlds, gentle worlds, worlds where evolution did not require constant struggle against death. Class 12 meant something different entirely. High gravity, extreme weather patterns, millions of species competing for survival, predators in every environment, diseases that mutated faster than medicine could adapt, natural disasters that reshaped continents. And the humans had not just survived there, they had dominated. In the cantina, Danny ate his breakfast while aliens at nearby tables watched him with new eyes. Some looked afraid, some looked curious. A few looked at him like they were seeing him for the first time. Myra brought him extra food without being asked. "The whole station is talking about you," she said quietly. "I figured. They are saying you are the most dangerous thing on Waypoint 16. Danny sighed. I just wanted to eat my dinner in peace. He would not let me. Myra sat down across from him, something she rarely did during work hours. I had no idea, Danny. 2 years we have been friends, and I had no idea what you were capable of. It never came up. But how? Her feathers ruffled with confusion. He was so much bigger than you. His claws could cut through metal. Danny put down his fork and thought about how to explain. Where I come from, being big does not mean much. Some of the most dangerous animals on Earth are small, poison in their skin, venom in their fangs. We learned early that size is not everything. So humans are venomous? No, but we are persistent. We can chase prey until it drops from exhaustion. We heal from wounds that would kill other species. We adapt to heat, to cold, to heights, to depths. Our world tried to kill us every day, and we just kept going. Myra stared at him. That sounds terrifying. It is normal to us. Before she could respond, a shadow fell over the table. Danny looked up to see Seth, the young Torvon from Grath's crew. He stood nervously, his scales shifting color with anxiety. Human, Seth said, may I speak with you? Danny gestured to the empty seat. Sure. Seth sat down slowly, keeping his claws carefully flat on the table. A non-threatening gesture. I wanted to understand, he said. How did you do it? Grath is the strongest fighter I know. He has never been defeated like that. He underestimated me. That was his first mistake. But even if he had not, could he have won? Danny considered the question honestly. Probably not. Seth's eyes widened. Why? Because his body evolved for a world with 1/3 the gravity of mine. His bones are hollow. His muscles are designed for light work. On my world, he would barely be able to stand. Danny leaned back. I spent my whole life carrying weight that would crush him. Every step I take, every breath I draw, my body is working 3 times harder than it ever has. Seth processed this slowly. Then all humans are like you. Danny actually laughed at that. I am nothing special, average strength, average speed. Back home, I would not even make a professional. Sports team. The young Torvon looked horrified. You are average. By human standards, yes. Seth sat in silence for a long moment. His worldview was crumbling around him. Everything he had believed about strength and power and combat was being rewritten. I must tell the others, he finally said. They need to know. Know what? That we should never fight humans again. Danny shrugged. We do not want to fight. Most of us just want to live our lives, do our work, and be left alone. Grath could have walked away. He chose not to. Seth stood and bowed his head slightly, a gesture Danny had never seen from a Torvon before. Thank you for not killing him, Seth said quietly. You could have, I saw it in your eyes, but you stopped. Danny nodded. There is no honor in destroying someone who cannot fight back. That is something my people learned a long time ago. Seth left the cantina with much to think about. Myra watched him go, then turned back to Danny with a strange expression. What? Danny asked. You are terrifying, she said, but also kind. That is a confusing combination. Danny smiled and returned to his breakfast. That is what being human is all about. Grath spent a week in the medical bay. The Celian doctors worked carefully to repair his broken bones and reset his dislocated shoulder. They used advanced regeneration technology, but even with the best treatment available, he would carry the memory of those injuries for a long time. He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, replaying the fight in his mind over and over. 40 seconds, that was all it had taken. 40 seconds to destroy everything he believed about himself. He had trained since childhood. He had won 43 duels. He had broken the bodies of warriors from across the sector. He had believed he was unstoppable. The human had barely tried. The medical bay door slid open, and a Celian doctor walked in with a data tablet. She had 4 arms, and she used all of them to gesture as she spoke. Your bones are healing well, she said, but I wanted to show you something. She pulled up 2 images on the tablet. One showed a cross-section of a Torvan bone, the other showed a human bone. "This is why you lost," she said simply. Grath looked at the images. His bones were light, filled with tiny air pockets that made them strong for their weight but ultimately fragile. The human bone was solid, dense, like stone wrapped in muscle. Human bone density is nearly 3 times the galactic average, the doctor explained. Their muscle fibers are packed tighter than any species I have studied. They evolved under gravity that would crush most life forms. "I did not know," Grath whispered. "Most people do not. Humans are rare out here. They keep to themselves. They do not brag about their abilities." The doctor paused. "You are lucky he stopped when he did. A human striking at full force could have killed you with a single blow." Grath closed his eyes. Lucky. He had never felt less lucky in his life. When he was finally released from medical care, Grath walked slowly through the station corridors. His arm was still in a support brace. His ribs ached with every breath. Other species watched him pass, and for the first time in his life, he saw something other than fear or respect in their eyes. Pity. They pitied him. The mighty Torvan champion, reduced to limping through hallways while others whispered about his defeat. His crew had left 2 days ago. They could not bear to stay and watch their leader humiliated. Only Seth remained, and even he kept his distance. Grath found himself walking toward the cargo bays. He did not know why. His feet simply carried him there. And then he saw the human. Danny was working alone, loading containers onto a transport platform. Each container weighed hundreds of kilograms, but he lifted them like they were empty boxes. His movements were efficient, practiced. He had probably done this 1,000 times. Grath stood at the entrance and watched. After a few minutes, Danny noticed him. He set down the container he was carrying and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Come to finish our fight?" Danny asked. There was no hostility in his voice, just mild curiosity. "No," Grath said. I do not know why I came." Danny studied him for a moment, then gestured to a nearby crate. "Sit down before you fall down. You look terrible." Grath hesitated, then walked over and sat. The crate creaked under his weight, but held. For a while, neither of them spoke. "I have been fighting since I was young," Grath finally said. "My father was a champion, his father before him. It is all I know." Danny leaned against a container, and I thought I was the best. I thought nothing could defeat me." Grath looked at his braced arm. "I was wrong. Everybody loses. Eventually. Torvan do not lose. That is what I was taught. We are warriors. We are conquerors." His voice cracked slightly. "But you broke me in 40 seconds. You barely even tried." Danny was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something about my world?" Grath nodded. On Earth there were creatures called sharks, giant fish with rows of teeth that could bite through bone. Humans swam in the same waters with them, not because we were stronger, because we learned to respect them. Danny crossed his arms. "Respect is not weakness, it is wisdom." "I did not respect you." "No, you did not. And now I am broken because of my arrogance." Danny shook his head. "You are not broken. Your bones will heal. Your pride will heal too if you let it." He pushed off from the container. "The question is what you do next. Keep being the bully who picks fights with strangers or learn from what happened." Grath looked up at the human. This creature who had destroyed him so easily, who could have killed him without effort, was now offering him advice. Not mocking him, not gloating, just talking like they were equals. "Why are you being kind to me?" Grath asked. Danny smiled slightly. "Because where I come from, the fight ends when someone yields. You yielded. The rest is just history." He returned to his work, leaving Grath alone with his thoughts. The Torvan sat on that crate for a long time, watching the human work and thinking about everything he had believed about strength and weakness. Maybe, he thought, he had been measuring the wrong things all along. 3 months had passed since the fight. The cantina on Waypoint 16 was busy as always. Traders argued over prices. Workers complained about their shifts. Myra moved between tables, taking orders and delivering drinks with her usual efficiency. And in the corner, at the same table where everything had started, Danny Reeves sat eating his dinner. He was not alone. Grath sat across from him, nursing a drink with his now-healed arm. The Torvon had changed in the months since their duel. He was quieter, more thoughtful. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like peace. They had become friends. It had started slowly, Grath returning to the cargo bay to talk, Danny answering his questions about Earth and humanity, conversations that stretched from minutes to hours, two former enemies discovering. They had more in common than either had expected. "Tell me again about the crocodiles," Grath said. Danny smiled. It had become one of Grath's favorite topics. "They are giant reptiles that live in rivers and swamps. They can grow longer than you are tall, with jaws that can crush bone. And humans swim in the same water. Sometimes, if we are careful." Grath shuddered. "Your world is insane." "You should see the spiders." "I do not want to see the spiders." Myra approached their table with fresh drinks. She had gotten used to this strange friendship, though she still did not entirely understand it. The Torvon who had terrified her now said please and thank you when she served him. "You two are the strangest pair on this station," she said. "He broke my bones and taught me humility," Grath replied. "That makes him the best teacher I have ever had." The cantina doors slid open, and a group of newcomers walked in. They were Kravosi, a tall species with blue skin and a reputation for aggression. They had just arrived on the station and walked like they owned the place. Their leader scanned the room, and his eyes landed on Danny. "Is that a human?" he said loudly. "I heard they were supposed to be dangerous, but that one looks like a maintenance worker." His crew laughed. Danny did not look up from his food. The Kravosi leader swaggered closer. "Hey, Groundwalker, I am talking to you." Grath stood up. The movement was sudden enough that the Kravosi stepped back. The Torvon was still massive, still covered in scales and scars, and his eyes had gone cold. "That human," Grath said quietly, "broke 3 of my bones in 40 seconds. I was the champion of my sector. I had never lost a fight." He leaned closer to the Kravosi. "I suggest you show respect." The Kravosi leader looked from Grath to Danny and back again. He was trying to calculate if this was a bluff. Danny finally looked up. His eyes met the Kravosi's, and something in that gaze made the alien's confidence waver. There was no anger there, no threat, just the calm certainty of a predator who had nothing to prove. "We were just leaving," the Kravosi leader said quickly. He grabbed his crew and hurried to a table on the far side of the cantina. Grath sat back down with a satisfied grunt. Danny shook his head. "You did not have to do that." "I know, but I wanted to." Grath picked up his drink. "Consider it payment for the lessons." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the cantina return to its normal noise. "Can I ask you something?" Grath said eventually. "Sure. Do you ever miss your homeworld? Earth, I mean." Danny thought about it. The red dust of Queensland, the sound of birds in the morning, the weight of sunlight on his shoulders, the smell of rain on dry ground. "Every day," he admitted. "But there is nothing for me there anymore. My family has moved on. My old life is gone. This is home now." Grath nodded slowly. "Then I am glad you stayed. This station needed someone like you. Someone who breaks bones in bar fights. Someone who shows mercy afterward." Grath raised his glass. "To humans, the most terrifying and kind species in the galaxy." Danny laughed and raised his own glass. "To learning from our mistakes." They drank together as the station continued its endless rotation around the gas giant below. In the months that followed, the story of Danny and Grath spread far beyond Waypoint 16. It became legend among the trading routes. A cautionary tale passed between species who thought they understood strength. "Do not mock humans," the story said. "Do not fight humans. Do not underestimate humans." But also the stories added do not fear humans without reason. They are not cruel, they do not seek conquest, they simply want to live their lives in peace. And if you give them that peace, they might just become the best friends you ever had. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. It held species of every shape and size, from every kind of world imaginable. But there was only one species that had crawled out of a Deathworld hellscape and emerged not as monsters, but as something far more surprising. Survivors who chose to be kind. That was humanity's greatest strength. And Grath, sitting in a cantina with his human friend, finally understood what that meant.